Well, thank you. I really appreciate it once again for having me, inviting me to come over here and speak. So good evening to everyone. I'm Thosh I'm Joe Donja from Arizona, and happy to be here. It's good to see you all. Just honored to be able to come over into this beautiful place right here at the Hugam Heritage Museum and talk about this topic here. And it's a beautiful space here. Always love coming here, especially for the storytelling. So thank you for coming on over last minute, because I know we just put the flyer out a couple days ago. That's my fault, but it's good to, some of you I know and some of you are I'm just meeting here too. So I look forward to this talk right here. And just to tell a little bit more about myself for those of you that may not know so much about me. As I said, I'm from Octomate Ogden. This is my family right here. She just turned 6. And Weston, she just turned 3. And this is my wife Chelsea. She's from North Dakota. She's standing on Lakota and Turtle Mountain, Chippewa. So we're a household of many different nations, and we are currently residing in Mesa, but we're right now designing our home in Salt River on my land. So we're really excited about that, to be living in the community. So that's who I am. Tony Collins, Joe Collins. My mom Joe is from Oklahoma. She's Wajaji and Haudenosaunee, which is the Seneca and Cayuga people. So I also come from those nations as well, Plains, Woodland, but was raised here in Onalkamera O'atam, amongst the O'atam Humachka, amongst all of us as people here. And so some of our relatives from way back came from right here from Sacaton area as well, and moved up to Onalkamera. But just as I said, some of the what I am first and foremost is a father, as a husband, and as a fellow community member. And I think for me, those are sort of the things that I used to describe myself. For occupation-wise, my work-wise, I do indigenous wellness work, and I work as a consultant, not only just Salt River, but all throughout Native country in the U.S. and in Canada as well. And our work is about sharing our wellness model, the 7 circles, a model for living well, for our people, for healing from the real impacts of historic trauma as a result of colonization. There's a big movement in Native country, right, as we know, for our people to heal and for our people to restore our identity of who we are as indigenous people. And so that's the work what I do. But first and foremost, I always say a father and husband are the greatest roles that I'll ever have. And there's me and my daughters trying to out-dad all the other dads in Salt River by taking the kids out into the land, taking them out. This was 2 years ago from this month. And that's a beautiful area right there. These are the mountains that are right outside of Svugto, Red Mountain. Beautiful area. We like hiking in there. We hunt in there. And we like taking the kids out there on the land to get them used to being out there, walking on the uneven terrain, getting to know the different all the plants, getting them to identify the various Haichidoakam, the animal nations, being able to see them and all that. So that's kind of, what I always like to say, first and foremost, that's what I am, as a father and a husband here to these children. But I love being out on the land. I love doing things, and this time of year is just ending the time of year of the Uvaregamasha, the moon of when the mule deer and the Kurihwai and the Sikhwai, Kuri Sikh are rutting. So this is just things that I love to be and be out on the land, and that's my way of being able to connect with the Javud, and I feel play my role within the family and community, one that provides and do that. And so when I get out to do these things, I always give thanks for Nyahanchbadag, my body. I give thanks for the life, the opportunity to be able to go out and do these things on the land here, whether it's to hunt, to forage during different seasons, or to get out and to plant with the family right there. And so a big part of when I was growing up, my dad, Tony, had these photographs in our house a lot. And so as a kid, as a George, as a Artie George, I grew up looking at these images. And I just knew in my mind, it told me at an early age that as all of them people, we were always strong people. We were always athletic people. We were always intelligent people. We were people that were connected to one another, connected to the land. And I found a lot of inspiration in this because I played basketball a lot. Some of you, I know you guys play sports and all that as well. I played basketball starting at 10, 11. And then I started with the spiritual runners in Salt River around that time. It was about 1991, 92. I was like, 10 or 11. And I still do the runs today. And being a part of the runner circle as a kid, listening to a lot of the kukar, the elders talk, they always talked about how the men in our community, the men of our people, how athletic they were. They talked about how fast they were. They talked about how agile our people were, the agility of our people. And they always talked about the grit that our people had and how the men were able to run distances while fasting. Sometimes they would just have hun chui or birkin chui on them and just a little bit of chuku, in like a little sack. They'd run miles, and they were able to do that with eating very little. And then if they had to fight, they had to fight. So I always knew growing up, that's who we are. So to me, that's some of the first inspirations of living a healthy lifestyle. Stoicut, a good way of life, a healthy way of life. Those are some of the first things that I had that really kind of changed my mind from all the way from a youth into manhood. So that's why today I take our overall health very seriously as well. And as I got to be a little bit older, I was old enough to kind of see the health disparities that's so prevalent in our community. And all of us know these health disparities, right? We know that asuka mamkida, diabetes, is very prominent amongst our people. We know that as a result of that, the kidneys, the oorpa, also become affected by that. We know that addiction is one of the biggest struggles that our people, not just addiction to substances like alcohol and other paraphernalia, but addiction to processed foods, to sweets, to sugar, all these things that I have certainly experienced myself through my years of being on this land right here. We know that addiction is prevalent amongst our people, and so as I started to get older, I was starting to see what are the roots of this, the roots of these things that are happening in our people as a result of the colonial process. So that's really what kind of sparked me to maintain being on this journey of living a good, healthy life. But it was always with these images right here. I would always see these images, both men and women of our people. We're athletic people. We're people that love to move, and we celebrated our bodies. We celebrated through various games, through sport, through activity. So it's in our hemadug. So I tell young people all the time, it's in our hemadug to be athletic, to be strong, to be fast, to have agility, to have endurance. That's our culture. That's our way of life. So I tell people, don't think about it just in a modern sense. Think about this as something that's part of our culture, both men and women. So moving on to the Soncki and the Kavak. This is the one that's in the National Museum of American Indian. That's an illustration on the right. That's about the uprising in Tumakakri. You can learn more about that online. But just kind of looking at the Kavak, the shield, and the Soncki, the war club, since that's what this talk is about. And just they have some here as well. If you haven't seen those, these are around in this. They have a collection. They have some here in this collection. These are just different ones I found online. As you may know, the Colorado River tribes have very similar weaponry to us as well. So do also the Apache as well. So this one right here is all of them. These two down here are all of them. These are variations. One of those you can see is also all of them. I think that's the same one as the one on the far end. But just kind of looking at that, the different styles that the Soncki was, how it was created. So I don't see it as any right or wrong way to create them. It's really about, is it made of hoitkam or is it made of koi? Does it swing right? Does it got weight to it? And so I started getting interested in that about 10, 12 years ago because again, when I was a kid, I would listen to some of the Gukar, the elders, they would talk about this. They would talk about the war club. They talk about the Soncki was like a part of him, a part of the warrior, the fighter. It was a part of him, and it was one thing that he made. And when they would go to harvest from the hoitgam, the ironwood, to make it, they were connecting with that, and they would create. When they created that, it was theirs. That they had to take care of it. It wasn't something that they just laid around. It wasn't something that their kids played with, or the wives or the moms took care of. It was his responsibility as the man, as the warrior, as the fighter, to take care of his things, to take care of his kavak and his club and such. Also, historic written account too from our own people. This right here, this quote right here, Apima remembers from George Webb. There's lots of George Webb quotes in this building I see. This is a great resource if you haven't read this book yet. I read this probably about 4 or 5 times over the years. I go back in there and read things because you kind of forget, and it's what you do is you listen, you look at some of our authors in recent times. You even read some of the anthropological written account as well, and listening to oral tradition. And what I have done is like to try to combine that, and you start to kind of develop your understanding of who our people were, what happened to us, and where we are headed into the future. But I love this quote right here. He says, in those days, a Pima warrior, oops, that's okay. I'll read it right here. It says, in those days, a Pima warrior coming toward you holding one of those shields in front of him, jigging and sidestepping, watching every move you make from over the edge of the shield was considered very dangerous. If you shot an arrow at him, he merely sidestepped, holding the shield at an angle and in the path of the arrow. When it hit the shield, it only glanced off to one side, and before you were ready for a second shot, the warrior was upon you, knocking the weapon out of your hand and putting his war club into effective use. A Pima warrior with those weapons was a man to look out for. So that's just George Webb's, his sort of recollection on what the warrior was with the shield and the club. And there's a couple other pieces like this too. If you also read Anna Moore Shaw's book, A Pima Past. She also recounts stories of the Soncki and the Kavak as it related to the people at the time. And a lot of what our oral tradition talks about is that when a young boy, when they were getting pretty early, about 5, 6 to 7, 8, they were starting to be introduced to the bow and arrow, to hunting the thob, the cottontail. They were starting getting introduced to the kavak, and they would use, say, their dads or their uncles, and then the uncle would come in and teach them the moves, and teach them, and they'd spar with them. So pretty early on, and these, as we know, these are the things that don't really happen anymore. But this is what I'm sort of talking about, is how do we restore that? How do we bring these things back to our people to give more purpose to our young men? Because what happened to our people, and I'm going to kind of touch again really briefly when we're talking about the colonial process that all indigenous people endured in recent time. We know that colonialism is the root cause of the disruption of our social structures. So partly one reason to why the himadug of the Soncki and Gavak was failed to get passed down, because we were cut off from it, from the colonial process, right? At some point in time, the people had no use for it. But we know that with that, that's just an example of many aspects of our way of life. But that root cause, colonialism, what does it cause? Cultural trauma. The loss of lifeways of our people, the loss of rivers, the loss of our foodways. Also, clan systems are in disorder. And what happens when our imik, our clan system, or vumagar, the clan system becomes disrupted? Well, there's a loss of moral values in clan and community. People no longer know their roles within that because these whole systems have been in disarray, right? Also, what happens if there's an absence, that means it makes more room for things such as the influence of Western patriarchal ideology that has kind of gotten into a lot of our males, people's minds. And what happens as a result of that is we see things like we see in our community: domestic violence, sexual assault, abuse, child abuse, neglect, emotional and verbal abuse, and also male supremacy ideology and addiction. These are all the symptoms of our people who we have been, our way of life was been interrupted, right, through the colonial process. So this is why I see healing and wellness for all human beings is so critical. But in this case, is looking at all the men. Looking at all the men in the community, and through my work in our wellness work, both in Salt River, all over amongst all of them, I've come across a lot of men who are looking for purpose, a lot of men who are looking for belonging. They're looking for something to express themselves, an outlet. And one of the things I try to share with a lot of men is you can start with the nyanya, learn our songs. There's a good amount of belonging when you're sitting in the circle with the other singers, and there's the layer of women sitting on the outside, then outside of them the people are dancing. The connection that I always feel, the sense of belonging that I feel, is really a special thing. It's a really important thing. Also with the Spiritual Runners Group, that's another way of, I believe, is another outlet for men to get involved with, men to express themselves. And do you guys know that sometimes we have energy, we have to expire that energy. We have to do something with the energy. That's why sometimes some of us work out. We go for a run. I don't know about you guys, but I can't sit down for too long. I can't sit down for too long. I need to get up and move around, even if it's just a walk. But I have a fire, nada, as I say, that I need to extinguish. I need to get rid of that. So movement is a really important way for that. I notice also too with stress, with high stress that many of our men are dealing with as well. What happens, even the science shows, when we exert our body, when we exert ourselves physically, there's a release. That what happens is that the brain releases neurochemicals, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, noradrenaline. It releases that, and it binds in the brain. And what happens is you experience this sort of release. And there's also an ease of stress. There's an ease of even pain. So this is the same thing. If you come out of a sauna or a sweat lodge and you feel really good, that's because dopamine is surging through your veins. Same thing when you get done with a run or a sprint, you're playing basketball. There's a release going on there. So I always say to look to our games as indigenous sport, to be able to add that give us that sense of gratification through movement. So that's what happened to our people. This is what I'm proposing, some of these things right here. There's something I like to say, talking about evolution. But human must continue to evolve to see all them people's needs in 2024 and beyond. The concept of cultural evolution, I think, is a really important, critical topic for us to have as community people. And that could look a number of different ways to our different people. But what I mean by that is that if you think about where we are currently at as O'odham people, right now we are in state of preserving what knowledge we have. When I talk about knowledge, I'm talking about the songs, the storytelling, the creation stories, the language, the dances that we do, the ceremony. We have to preserve those things so the next generation has those. There's a lot of things that we revitalized in our community. A lot of the songs that are being sung out there in the community now are songs that only one person knew, and they passed it on, and then they revitalized it, and now everyone sings them. Or some of the songs, like part of the work Leland does, is going to the archives, the various archives throughout the country, to have recordings of our people. None of us have ever heard. They bring these out, they translate them, they learn them, they listen to them, and they put them back out there, and those songs live once again. That's evolution. That's revitalization. So there's three components to that: preserving, revitalizing, and evolving. Preserve, revitalize, evolve. That's where we're at right now. We're preserving this stuff, we're revitalizing things, we're also evolving some things as well. And a good example of cultural evolution that's happening is the reburial ceremony, because we didn't have to, in recent history, or in the old, before the Mirdagon came here, we didn't have to rebury the dead, right? But because of construction and development, the remains of the Ukiokam have come up, and new ceremonies had to be done to put those people in a rightful place. That's another example. Hey, now it started. Benny showed up. And so another example too of revitalization and evolving is the boys coming of age ceremony. And that's been something that's been really recent as well, and it's been really good to see that evolve. And also the girls coming of age ceremony. I was little, I was a kid in the mid 80s, late 80s when they did the first coming out in Salt River after so many years of not doing it. My dad was one of the singers for that. I remember watching that. And then it evolved and changed over time. But that's another example of the revitalization of something that was no longer practiced. So again, it's to revitalize, it's to preserve, and it's evolve. And those are no specific order, in no specific order. These things are happening simultaneously. If you go to certain communities, I've been to a lot of communities out east, they're mostly in a state of revitalizing things and preserving what little they have. They haven't even really got to evolving yet. Then you go to other communities where a lot of their himadug is really intact. Like if you go to Navajo Nation, they're really progressive in a lot of ways. They've really done a lot of evolution. You can go to their healthcare center and you can go in and do patient intake, and you can request to be seen by one of their makai, and their insurance covers it. That's evolution, that's progression, and that's what we're actually trying to do that at HHS over in Salt River. So that's evolution, right? So this is what I mean when I say himadug must continue to evolve to see all of them people's needs in 2024 and beyond. And again, this is a hard topic for some people because they think that you're trying to change things. But what we are doing is we're saying we need to find a way to meet the needs of our people through our himadug here and now. There's been certain things that become obsolete. Like if you talk to a lot of the Cookard, or if you read some of the historic written archives, they have practices that no one has done in our communities for decades because the culture that we had to adapt to no longer required those things to happen. Same thing, the Soncki is a great example of that. The Soncki, we don't have to go to battle today, right? You get enlisted maybe in the Marines and you go and you fight, a war that's controversial, but you're not going to have a war club, right? So what happens to the Soncki? He's now lonely, he's tucked away, he's hanging on a wall, he's in an archive no longer being used. And that's where I say, it's time to repurpose these things. How do we take these things and bring them and reincorporate them back into our culture and our way of life to meet our needs here and now? So that's my whole idea and viewpoint towards this concept of repurposing the Soncki for men's overall health and wellness for thriving. That's what this is related to. And I started first making one about, this one was in 2014, then I took this picture. I was trying to be all bad, trying to be all cool and stoic. With my brother, he made that bow, that Scott, the bow. He's always experimenting with different ones as well with those. But I went over to the hoitgum, that ironwood, and made my offering and asked if I could take a piece of it. And because when you go to the hoitgum, we're cutting it, we're hurting it. They're alive too. That's what this ceremony, the offering of that, is acknowledging that this is a live being and we're taking from it. But you state your purpose. I share that with a lot of men. You state your purpose. Why am I taking a piece of you? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the Soncki, and I'm going to breathe life into it. And it's going to be a symbol for strength. It's a symbol for healing. It's a symbol for moving forward, of leadership. So that's what I tell the hoitgum. That's what this is going to be for, and it won't be wasted. So that's the one I started to make. Yeah, it was about 10 or 12 years ago. I made them a little bit bigger than what I was kind of seeing in some of the archives and such, but that's been a part of my journey as well, my journey of sobriety from substances and alcohol. 11 years of sobriety I had, and I made this right around that time. It was just this what happened when I put away substances, I put away alcohol, and then things started to draw me back out to the desert where I was raised, in that area right there. I was raised going out there to hunt with my dad, to go and be in the documentary with family and friends and such. But getting back out to the desert is what it led me there, and it helped me to get on this journey of making the Soncki here. So there's some key points And when he gets the, he restarts the slide, I'll show you these here. But there's some key points with the Soncki right here. The main thing is what I mentioned. The purpose is overall good health. It's a tool to help facilitate good health. And when I say health in the Mirdagon way, I mean it in the autumn way, the autumn humachkum way. Which when we talk about health, it's a healthy mind, it's healthy body, it's healthy emotions and spirit. All those things work together, right? So that's what this is about. Stoa, good health. But what happens from health? Leadership. That's also what I see this as a symbol of. Because no longer we have to go to battle. No longer do we use these to fight, to kill, and take life. That's what these were originally. And so they were dangerous objects and weapons. Today we don't do that no more. But there's still a use for it. So for me, to introduce or to bring the Soncki into your life, it's leadership. It helps to create health, which one of the outcomes of being in a good mind, in a good way, is leadership. In your own life, leadership in the family, but leadership in the community as well. And there's some people in here, there's leaders in here already, I know you. Also as a protector, because that's originally, again, what these were for, was to protect our people, to protect our family from the ones that we used to fight. But again, we no longer have to protect in that way, unless maybe there's an opportunity. People carry firearms today for self-defense. If that's around and I had to use it, I would. So that's where I think about it in this sense too. That's sort of maintaining that original purpose. Sometimes I leave that in my truck. And I kind of joke about it, but it could be a serious matter. I don't know. But when I say protector, it's a protector of knowledge. So again, I think that when we are, as Autam Charge, as men, part of our role today, in 2024, is a protector of knowledge, a protector of the songs, a protector of the language, a protector of one who knows the ceremonies and stories. But it's also one who stands up for the right of women and children. Because as we mentioned in the other slide, one of the negative outcomes of colonialism today is domestic violence. Violence against women, violence against children. But in the original Autumn way, those were big taboos. Those were a violation of the Vumagar, a violation of the clan system. They were a violation of natural law. But again, those values have been severed, right? And many of the men have been hurt, and they're perpetuating what was done to them. So the Soncki, to me, is a symbol that stands against that. It stands for the protection of women and children, to stand up for women and children, especially to predators in the community, outside of the community, to say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. This is not our way, and you need to stop. And that thing doesn't even need to be present. But what it represents is in your ibadah. It's in your chiktadug, it's in the mind. So it's a symbol for that. So that's kind of what I tell a lot of men that want to make them. I said, make it attach values to it. What do you stand for in life? What do you want to be a leader of in your life? And attach it to that. So now the Soncki is holding you accountable, because you made that offering to the Hoitgam, to the Jevit, and Natakam has listening to your words. Now we have to stand by that. We have to walk in the same way. It's the same thing with the spiritual runners. Once they make this commitment to become part of the runners, then you have to walk this certain way. You have to be able to drop what you're doing when the people need you. You have to live a way of life where you're not using substances and alcohol and hurting other people. So that's very much like what this is as well. So leadership, protector, also altruistic. To be altruistic. I always say a big part, when you have good health, a part of it is giving yourself. You go out there to the community events. Do we need to chop wood? Do we need to, what can I do to help? I know some of you guys are like that. Ipa's like that here. Anywhere he shows up, he asks, what can he do to help? That's leadership. That's being altruistic. That's following out the way of life. Is you're just always there to give. What can I do to help? I've seen that a lot in people. A lot of you have that. So that's, to me, that's what it means. Because, again, that's an outcome of good health. That's an outcome of good health right there. Also, camaraderie, and I talked about this earlier. That's what a lot of our men are looking for. All men of all walks of life. I know women have this amongst too. But as men, we want something to belong to. That's why you have your bros, you have your chums, you got your gym buddies, you got your buddies you play ball with. It's a human thing that we look for camaraderie, we look for other like-minded people, we look to connect in a way that we understand. That's what, to me, the Soncki also represents. That's what the singers' circles represents to me. Also the spiritual runners group, that's what it represents to me. When I was a kid, when we first started the spiritual runners, there'd be 30, 40 guys out there. Sometimes we went to a run where they'd start over in Chidaguahi in Mexico, and they ran all the way to Itoihaki. And there was about like 70 people a part of that run, and it was a long relay run, and you get down and you end in a circle, and there's all these people, and it's not like that no more. So many of our men have been led astray by dominant society, and they're looking for it. And that's why we have so much men incarcerated in the state penitentiary, federal. We have a lot of men that are on probation, they can't do much things. We have lots of men that are in recovery homes or are trying to get back on their feet because of the loss of all this. They're looking for these things, but they can't find it because not a lot of things that are culturally relevant have been made available. So again, that's how, for me, that's what the Soncki means in 2021. It means things like leadership, protector, altruistic. Also too, it's bringing spirituality and fitness together. And that's how I use this. That's how I use this. A lot of times when I start and I do a warm-up and I work out with the Soncki, I always start, and I start towards the sunlight, Thosh, and I just kind of honor. It's a greeting of the natural world. It's a greeting of all these things, and it's a giving of thanks for Nyehonspadag, for Nyekakyo, Nyonov, like my arms, legs, all these things right here. So to me, that's a way to kind of bring fitness. It's bridging fitness and spirituality together. That's something for me is very important and a good thing. And just kind of looking at more technical aspects of health, getting back to what I was talking about, stoa, good health. Well, one of the things that happens or theoretically, I would say, if someone was to pick this up and to be training with this regularly, I know I kind of talked about this with some of you guys, picking this up and training with this regularly can improve what I have right here on the screen. It'll pop back up after a while, it's okay. I'll just tell you. But improving body composition, and body composition is not just for aesthetics and for looks. So we talk about improving body composition is reducing adipose tissue, reducing visceral fat around our organs through movement, and improving of muscle metabolism. So building muscle is the fat burning engine. And again, this isn't just for looks. There's lots of things happening under the hood, when we go to try to actively improve the body composition through running, dancing, any sorts of physical activity, weight training, running distance, sprinting, whatever it be, CrossFit, combat sports, calisthenics. These things happen right here. So improving of body composition, that's what that means. Also, improving of insulin sensitivity as well. There's a lot of science in this, is that even with people who are living with Asuga monkey dog type 2 diabetes, even a brisk 15-minute walk will still cause their muscles to uptake the glucose that's circulating in the bloodstream. Because that's one of the hallmarks of type 2 diabetes, is there is a surplus of glucose in the bloodstream, and it's supposed to be in your muscles, it's supposed to be in your organs. And what happens with insulin insensitivity in type 2 diabetes is it's too much blood sugar in the bloodstream, and it starts to damage the nerves over time, right? Causing fatigue and such, because now you're not getting glucose as fuel. The glucose is supposed to be going into the cells in the brain, in the organ, your heart, all these sorts of things. The liver takes it up as well. And only so much is supposed to be in the bloodstream. So, walking, running have known, scientifically proven, lots of studies on that to improve insulin sensitivity. This is no different. And I'll show you some examples. Some of you have probably seen on my social media how I share how I exercise with some of these. These are our tool for that. Improving insulin sensitivity, also overall cardiovascular health. So there's various zones for cardiovascular health. Some of you probably know zone 1, 2, and 3. I would say that this exercise can range from zone 2 up to like zone 3 and 4. More intense to the point where you're not able to talk. Like if you're moving the shanch and you're swinging and you're doing stuff, there's a point where you're not going to really be able to talk because your cardiovascular system is required to work. So that's what could happen theoretically, improving cardiovascular health by using this to train. Strength endurance as well. Because sometimes I'll carry it and I'll just do a bunch of lunges, I'll do a bunch of squats, and it's not a whole lot of weight to offer a bunch of resistance, but it's just another item that your brain has to think about. So it can also be used in calisthenic program as well. Also for spiritual health. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important that we learn how to attach spirit to fitness. Because we know if we exercise, fitness in the sense of the Mirdagon, there's nothing spiritual about that in their minds, right? I think if you're just doing this, and you're at the gym, there's not. But if you're picking up an item and you're starting your workout with the prayer, you're starting your workout with acknowledging the natural world. You're acknowledging that this item is going to strengthen you. It's good, dog. It's going to create strength in your life. To me, that's attaching spirit. And there's a lot of people I think that will take to that. There's people that want more meaning in their activities. They want more spirit. They want to know, how can I be in a more spiritual way, physically active, to improve my health? This is something in my mind that's perfect for that. Another part, when he brings it back on here, thanks for bearing with us. He had just informed me that there was experiencing some difficulties with the projector. So thanks for bearing with us as long as we get there. But what my next slide talks about the process of making the shanch. That maybe some of you guys have made one before. Quite a bit of people, I've seen around make theirs. And I'm sure everyone has a different meaning for it today, which is certainly everybody's individual sovereign right to be able to utilize their shanch for different things. But for me, the process, I'm going to let this video run in the background. Oh, okay. So, well, it's a sense of empowerment too. When you're able to start with the tree branch, and after a week of whittling it down, it turns into this. Now you brought life to it in a different way. So there's empowerment in that. There's also creativity in that. We're creating things with our hands. There's that artistic aspect component to it. It's also physically demanding. When you're whittling this hoitgum, it's strong wood. Your forearms, the next day your grip will be really strained from whittling away, because sometimes you'll get engulfed in it. I'll start whittling it. I have to, when I make a new one, I have to know that I don't have anything to do for the next 2 or 3 hours, because this is going to take me over. I'm going to be whittling away, looking at it, and going. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to get stuck on it. So it's physically demanding, but it also teaches patience. And also, again, it teaches us about having that reverence for the natural world. As we pick it, as we go harvest it, but also as you make it, you remember you're working with a live thing. It's not just items. So when I make mine, my daughters and my wife don't touch it. They don't touch it because this is the object of the charge of us. Only if they absolutely have to move it. One time I called my wife and I says, hey, can you bring this thing out to me? I left it. I gotta come back. Can you? I'm gonna pull up to the house. Can you bring this out? She said, where's it at? I said, it's on the shelf underneath my war club. Then she goes, nah, not that chiefy. You sound underneath my war club. And so it's funny. I just that's just kind of how we that's the most of which we joke about it. But it's a serious thing. And my wife and the daughters respect that, so they don't touch it unless they absolutely have to move it. So that's what it is, the hoitgum, and I'll just show the whole little process of it is making, getting your guag And this is the fire hardening process. This is after you've carved it, and then now it's time to harden it. And that's what they used to do back in the day. All cultures of the world with their wooden weaponry, they fired it. And then they get stones, and then you're tapping it. There's stones that kind of help that wood to settle in there. So there's a whole process to that, which to me, again, this is a different thing. If those of you that don't regularly make organic things, I don't know, maybe you basket weave, or maybe you draw, or you do music, that's very much like this in a sense, where I think as human beings living in this technological age, we need to do things that don't have to do a double tap, scroll, type, flick a blinker. We need to do things with our hands again, with organic materials. It's really gratifying. It's a really good way to reconnect us to the Javut and get out the office, or get out from the house, or get out of the vehicle. So I encourage people a lot, whether it's to forge, to get out and do those things, to make an ipot, to bead or something, is a really important things that we have to be able to do. So again, the making process is empowerment, it's creativity, it's physically demanding. Teaches patience, and it teaches us about making the offering. And the next slide I had right here was my last slide, really was just showing, I was going to show some examples of how I utilize it. So getting into the more technical component of the Soncki. So what I heard, and some of you guys probably heard this too, what I heard and what I've also read was how when the warriors used the Soncki, they were light on their feet. Just like we read the quote right here from Apima Remembers, he talked about they would be able to lunge or move off to your side. I heard a lot of the elder men would talk about that. When we go to the runs and would be kids sitting in the oraski for all night, they would come in and they'd talk and all them all night. At the time I didn't know what they were saying. Then they would translate. But they always talked about one of the things that the men were how they were with the Soncki, because they said they were light on their feet. They were bouncy, they were light on their feet, and when they had to lunge to evade an attack, they were fast. They'd lunge this way, they'd lunge that way. And then they would take pride in not being hit. So they were really good at lunging. And you may have also heard the stories. They'd have the kavak, the shield, and they had a design. And that design there was used to really distract the opponent. They're like twisting it and moving it and trying to get the opponent to throw them off, to disorient them, while they had the Soncki in the other hand. There was one of the things, so footwork, agility was a big part of that. Another thing with striking, I was told, the late Royce Mandelbach told me about how his grandfather talked about they do a side swing. They'd swing sideways. They would also move to the side, and they'd chop down on the leg of the opponent. So they would be able to stagger the opponent. There's also a couple of, I believe in Pima Remembers, one of those are Pima Pass, they also reference that. They reference moving to the side and striking down on the opponent's leg, staggering him, and they would deliver the final blow, either with the head, or if they used the sharp end, they would jab. So it was a really brutal thing, but my point in telling this is they had tactics. There was that swing, there was an uppercut swing as well. There was a diagonal swing. So with me, when I first started training mixed martial arts, kickboxing, about 12 years ago. That's one of the biggest things I learned was footwork. And then I trained in capoeira too, Afro-Brazilian martial art. I trained that after a while. So when I picked up the Soncki, it was just one day, it just called me, hey, get out there and move with me. It said, move this way, do that. And it was like controlling. It's like there was probably spirit right there telling me, hey, do this, do that. Stay light on your feet. So I just started kind of playing around. Well, this is just doing some mobility stuff. I'm just using it as an accessory, creating hip mobility, trying to be barefoot as well, because you got to toughen the feet up, and that's the way they were back in the day. I was just doing my sprints, my warm-ups. This is some of the stuff I post on social media, but I don't show some of the basics that I have, the whole system. The whole system that I kind of created when I go to teach other men and some of the youth. I did a couple of classes with the youth in Salt River, young boys. there's a whole little system of which they learn. So lateral movement, forward movement, back movement. There's a jabbing motion, and then again the strikes that I showed you. But there's a whole warm-up that we do before that as well. So that have this whole system of movement that I'm only preserving just for all the men. And we're going to start our circle soon in Salt River, and I want all you guys to come over and be there. I want every all the men that I know to help to at least try this at some point. To try this, and I even told some of the men that are bound to a wheelchair, there's things we can do with it as well. There's things that we can modify for you as well, or the older guys that can't stand up too long because the thumb are not that good. So there's a whole system that I created. Again, it's just based off of a couple of things. My own knowledge and experience of martial arts, combative sports. Well, that's just using a log too, working out. I came back to it, but let's just kind of show right here, just kind of, this is the footwork I was talking about. This is just my interpretation based on using mixed martial arts and the oral tradition. Light on the feet, moving this way, swinging, uppercut swing, evading attack, backhand, I'm just getting all fancy, trying to be all good. And sometimes I just play around with it, I just try to make it fancy, I don't know, I'm just trying to attract people. Trying to see, I want the youth to see, oh, look at this guy, man. And this is a workout when I get done. See Hulk smash? So my daughter goes out. And I just play around. Sometimes I get a little crazy, you know what I mean? I get a little crazy with it. And this is just some of the stuff I put on social media. But I have a lot of guys reach out to me from around the Gila River, Salt River TO and say, hey, I want to learn that. I says, we're going to start it soon. Just hang on. Because what I have to finish doing is I go and I'll talk to a lot of the older guys in the community. I talk to a lot of old guys here in Gila River, Salt River. I ask them, hey, is this okay that we bring this back and use this as a form of fitness, of spiritual fitness for the men? And they all love it. They said, do it, bring it back. It should no longer, they said, it shouldn't just hang on your wall or sit there as an item. It needs to be put back to use. So that's my take on that. And that's what this whole talk was really about, is to kind of show, to repurpose that for our overall spiritual, physical, mental, emotional health, and in a way to reconnect to one another, a way to create camaraderie that I believe that a lot of what the men are looking for as well. So again, I have a whole system of movement that I'm ready to show, and when the time is right, I have to meet with some of the rest of the elder men to get a little bit more insight. Because the protocol is that if men want to come and be a part of our circle, then we have a little protocol here. I know maybe other people have their own ways, and that's fine. None is. We're not saying ours is the right way, but we have a little protocol about coming into the circle. And if men will get to try this out, and if the way I see it is, if this is something that they want to take into their life, then they have to think about it, because it's a lifetime commitment in a sense, to make this item for this purpose, and it's going to walk with you in the rest of your life here. So that's what these items are for with me. When I die, whether that's tomorrow or when I'm old, these will get buried with me, like a lot of our things, like a lot of our original items. They go with us, so that way when I go back to Ciudad de Vocho, these go with. They don't get passed down to my daughters or anybody. It's going to get buried. So this, to me, these are sacred items in that sense. They're a lifetime commitment. Some of these I run with on the spiritual runs. And yes, sometimes these are the only items that I use in a sacred way, but also I show as like a fitness on my social media. These are the only items I do that for. But this is my talk on this. This is my stance on repurposing the Soncki. I share it with you, and I hope it was well received. And this is certainly something that's in progress. And so insight is always welcome from other men. Insight is always welcome with this right here. But the way I see it is it's something that we could all be a part of together going forward. So again, thanks for coming over on short notice and listening to this talk right here. And again, I hope it was insightful, and I hope it got your minds thinking in a good way. So thank you to Leland and the museum, the establishment here, for allowing me to come over here and share these ideas with you. So, Dogai.
Let's give Thosh, another round of applause. And again, thank you guys for coming. Any questions for him? Anybody have any questions? You can talk to him after. And again, thank you for accepting the invitation to come over and talk and share. Just listening to him made me think of Michael Butt and the things that they've shared that I just now think about. Now listening to some of the elder men today is that they always tell me that in my generation, when I got older, it was going to be a totally different thing. I see that. I see that now. I see that with my own kids. I have my youngest son. He's fluent in Latin. We speak a totally different dialect, but he's fluent, and that's because that was in their home when they were growing up, when he lived with his mom. So, and it's funny because when we speak to each other, we say we speak wrong. But it's just our dialect. It's just how we tease each other. But I'm glad one of my kids actually is fluent. I should be, my grandma was, she never spoke English to us, but we understand. And just again, growing up, all the elders would always say, you're gonna live in a different aspect, you're gonna live in a different world from how we did. Even from like listening to my dad talk about my great grandpa and the things that he would share and say. And he said things are gonna change and it's gonna be different for your kids. It's gonna be different for my kids, it's also gonna be different for my kids' kids. So, but honestly, listening to his talk, Thosh's talk, and repurposing things and revitalizing is a good way. It's also a good way to, we're deeply rooted here as Autumn, and our roots go really deep and they stretch all over. And so I'm glad you got to share that, glad you got to share what you know about the Soncki and also for you guys to be here. And again, like I said, any questions, please feel free to ask.
Be already kind of talking to some of the older guys, and I would just try to ask them, hey, I want to ask you some questions about the Soncki and what you know about them, because it's something I'm exploring. It's something that I'm exploring and figuring out how do we bring it back today with a different purpose. And right off the bat, I just kind of tell them, I says, my idea for me, it's like a tool for overall good health. They'll kind of shake their head along with it, and they'll say, yeah, and they'll kind of tell me stories about how their grandfather or their uncle or somebody, how they had them, and they kind of tell me that, they had them, and sometimes they would take them out, and they would move around, they'd do things with them. I talked to one lady on the West End. She said that they would get that Soncki and they'd climb up to Comac over here, these estrellas, and they'd get in these cliffs and they'd loop it around like the edge of a rock and they'd pull themselves up and down and do pull-ups. Stuff that they were working out with it. So I think, a lot of times I've received the feedback or the energy from some of these guys I've got, back was just positive overall positive, like, yeah, it's good to bring it back. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, you should do that. And, as long as it's for the people, as long as it's for the men, then we should do that. There's other aspects in which I had not really received pushback or resistance from people. For instance, we did a project with my wife and I, we have our initiative is called Well for Culture. And one of the things that we did is we wanted to have various indigenous language speakers translate the 7 basic movements that the human body does, which is it squats, it lunges, it bends at the hips, it pulls, it pushes, and then it rotates. And then we have a gait, a walk, a run, or a sprint. I says, hey, let's translate and trying to create language in our language about working out in a modern sense. That way, our people are able to connect the dots. Again, we're fostering connection between language identity and physical fitness. So it's bringing those things together, and again, that's that evolution component. So when I ask some speakers, in the community, they'll be like, why would you say that though? They didn't get it, I don't know. Why would you say it like that though? Why would you want to say that or do that? And I'll be trying to explain it, because imagine you go to a class and they're trying to teach you to work out, and they're kind of the older generation, they didn't kind of get what we do today. But again, if you don't have a way to talk about now contemporary cultural things in our language, then the language is obsolete. If we can't talk about our world today, here and now, what we are doing, the language becomes not functional. It has to grow though. So that's what they are kind of doing bits and pieces of it where they had to come up with a cell phone, a word, nyonotaku. They had to come up with a word for cell phone. Vubki, movie theater. They came up with these things. So they kind of already started to do it, they're evolving. So you see what I mean? Is like we have to adapt in order to provide our people to talk about our world here and today and now in our language. Otherwise, it becomes dated for our youth. That's already one of the reasons why we are where we at with the language, is because we didn't catch up quick enough. And it's not the fault of several generations back. Technology is moving quick, moving fast. Now we see social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram have been, of course, worked against us, but has also a lot of benefit, for putting, inspiring people or teaching bits and pieces to other native people who don't have access. So that's kind of a tricky thing right there, but for the most part, I would say it's more of a positive thing. You have to weigh those risks. Are you willing to risk lots of people not finding out about something because you don't want some culture vultures to find out how much you're going to protect to the point where it hurts your own people? So, there's sort of, there are challenges for sure with evolving in that sense. That's a big topic right there. That's another one, that's an example of that. But for the most part, my experience has been pretty positive. I haven't met anyone that says, no, you shouldn't do that. There might be. I still have more guys to talk to, but for the most part, the consensus is positive. And following the Autumn protocol, us men, young men, we are to follow the lead of the older men, right? Back in the day, the older men would get together and they would talk about affairs. And they said, okay, we're gonna do this. And they'd send each head of each family would go back to their little cluster villages, kind of relate to everybody. They said this, so we're gonna do that. So I try to follow that, honor that today. When I go places, and if I'm there and someone asks me to speak or say a prayer or something, I say, hey, let's ask so-and-so, he's older, gotta respect that. Or, so try to follow that protocol. So my experience has been positive so far, going and talking to, all the older guys about how to go forward with this. But again, I said there might be people that may not like it, but I think at this point it's something that needs to happen. Yeah, absolutely. This is sort of, again, it's like a item or it's a totem that has a significance that a young person might relate to. This is something like this. The way of the Soncki here is a great opportunity to get in the hands of young men. That's where I want to learn this, especially is the young boys. Again, who don't have those father figures or they don't have the uncles that are playing the roles to teach them, about these things right here. This is a good tool to sort of facilitate and teach the young man. This is your role as a young man in the community, is to be a protector of knowledge and information. It's to take care of your honchpadog, your mind, your body, and it's to be one that you're available for the community. When people need you there to show up to whatever it is, chop wood, or go to run for the people, or go sing or do things for the people. To me, this is a symbol. So that's a great opportunity. And by sharing what I share, I put it out there for other men in our generation to use what I've said, as a teaching tool to connect with those young generation, those young men. So there's more opportunity. In my mind, I foresee more gatherings happening where we are out there in a circle. There's the fires present. And that whole thing is done sort of in a ceremonial way where we get out there and we train and we move. But it's certainly a good item for you. So thanks for that question. Yes, so this one you have to get the log. You can see this is the ibada, the heart. And this one was bigger, as you can see. This one's was a little bit smaller. I wanted to make a variety, but so the heart is right there, and the log was actually about this wide. So that's the size of the tree. If you can recollect back on that picture, that's the size of the branch that it has to come from. So it's like that, about that wide. So it's really whittling down, because otherwise if you get a small branch like this, the center is going to be small and the entire thing's not going to have a lot of weight. So in order to really get the movement out of it, you need some weight at the end of it. You know, you need some weight. So, but that's part of the things that we can do in Salt River is I foresee going out, you know, at dawn with some guys who wants to make this. I'll show you the way here. It's a little ceremony kind of thing. So, but yeah, it was started with the log and green, cut down, and once you cut it down, you gotta finish it because it'll dry up and then it'll crack. It'll crack. So that's why you start right away. You start the whittling, and then you start the fire hardening and the tapping with the stone. So that way it's solid. It makes it solid. So, and then the thinner it is too, the more it's gonna start to split. The thinner it is. So. I haven't made one with koi mesquite yet. I just like the hoit gum. But I'm not that familiar with that one other than making the staffs out of it. But
What kind of tools are you using? Examples?
yeah, just a saw, hand saw, and then what I'll do is with the log, I'll make the cuts with the hand saw where. So I'll put one right here and I'll put another one right here. And I'll cut down and then I'll start chipping it out. And then I might cut it again one more time. These are my better ones. I have a couple other ones, but these are some of the better ones or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, just file. So using a good sized blade with a wide handle. You need a big handle because your hands get tired. If you get a small, like 4 or 5 inch, you need something a little bit bigger. Like I had a knife like this. I was shaving it down. I haven't. I'm sure there's ways to put it in like what they call I think it's called a lay. You guys ever seen that? It's like I think Jared here, Lewis, he uses a machine. He makes some really nice ones. If you guys ever seen some of his work, I think he uses the machine. So that's another option as well. It's just like it spins and it's like whittling it. That's another option as well. So there's a number of ways to do it, but the way I see it is do whatever gets it done and whatever you're comfortable with. Because to me, it's not the how, it's the end product. It's the purpose of why you're making it is what counts. So yeah, and then but the file is another one too. Just whittling down, filing, and then sandpaper as well. And I'm sure you can put a finish to it if you want it. But yeah, there's different guys that make them differently, for sure.
How long did they take?
Like probably about 4 or 5 days off and on. Again, it's you got kind of a clear schedule because you really get into it. You really want to finish it, and it kind of possesses you in that way or whatever. And then I just keep it in a cool place when it's not being worked on. So when we get the staffs for different things, some of the older people in Salt River used to say to get it during the wintertime. So now's the time for some guys that want to get these things, because also when they're green, they're more malleable. They're more malleable versus in the summer when they're a little bit dry. And there's also like a sapping stage too that you don't want to get it during that time. I think that's the springtime. But now's the time in the wintertime when they're green and it's cool and the wood is really malleable. Yeah. Yeah, I can't recollect pinpoint exactly something. It was just, like I said before, when I was kind of new in my sobriety, I fell off a path where I didn't use substances or alcohol all the way until I was like 22. And I went away to college in the city and I kind of fell off this path. And I grew up in ceremony and I knew that you weren't supposed to do these things. And I found out why, the outcome. There was things going wrong in my life at the time. So when I finally put away these things, just more stuff started to, again, like I said, kind of steer me back to picking up things that I had learned in my youth. And I got immersed back in the songs again and got more serious about getting back out on the land again. And that was just one thing. I can't remember exactly why. I just, I'm going to make a club. My brother, too, Amson, was already kind of, experimenting, making the bows and stuff. So I just said, I want to make a club. So we went out there one time and he was working on a bow and I just was working on that. I think it was just sort of this like over time organic type of interests, you know what I mean? That kind of developed a little bit. But I can't pinpoint any like exact time where I woke up, you know? It was just, felt like something I needed to do for my manhood, to getting healthy, picking myself up, you know what I mean? And picking myself up because in the journey I was at, I was living in California, I came back and I didn't have anything. I didn't have a house, I didn't have a vehicle. I had to kind of pick myself back up. And then this is a part of that journey in a sense. So I think that's kind of why I think about it. It's like, this is bringing the Soncki. It's about growing up. It's about becoming a man. It's about being responsible. It's about manhood in a healthy way. I'm just gonna reach out individually, like I've been telling you. I was thinking about you and other people. We're gonna have a meeting. It's gonna be over behind my dad's on our land in Salt River. We got a nice open space, and we're just inviting men to come on out to talk about it, sit in a circle, have the fire nearby, and then do the basics. Do the basics with it. So that's kind of what I foresee. Even the fire department in Salt River reached out. They wanted me to teach this because the men want something more culturally relevant to stay active and fit. So that's the way I'll see it, is we're going to show it to various circles, and maybe people come together at certain times. Maybe we'll find ways to sort of lightly spar with it. You know what I mean? Like jab at each other, move around, feint, and things like that. But for the most part, it's a way for us to do fitness together. So the way I envision it is, it's calling out guys, hey, this date, we're coming on, we're going to come out springtime probably. We're going to have a circle, come on out and listen to, I might share a little bit more about this, and we might get them in some people's hands and move around. Because I've already tested it with some of the youth programs over in Salt River. We made they had some with the coordinator, he made some out of these dowels, so they were much lighter. But we got them in their hands, and the boys loved it. There was a couple of boys that were wrestlers, some that were doing martial arts, and they took to it really fast. So that's kind of the way I see it. But it's for all ages, all sizes of bodies, no matter if you're athletic or not. It's for all men. So, but I'll be telling you guys about that. Yeah.
Again, let's give Thosh another round of applause.